Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Beyond the Outer Realm. We are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM from the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM from New Orleans. Huge thank you to Steve McGinnis. We'd like to acknowledge the artist behind the logos here at the show. Check him out on Facebook and Instagram. Specializes in the Halloween and horror genre, but does amazing commission pieces of any type. So today, I've really been looking forward to this. Everybody who knows me knows I am just like all about Dracula and the whole lore, and probably read the book when I was 12 for the first time, own a first edition. This is my thing. So we're taking a step back in time with special guest Stephen Rolfes, and we're going to be discussing his book, The Bloody Road to Castle Dracula, explore the history of vampires and the inspiration behind Bram Stoker's masterpiece. So we're going to be unearthing from folklore to fiction and taking a look at where ancient lands and history collide along with myth. There's so much to it. Great book. You can get all of the information for the book, where to get it, the write-up, everything in the show description. So enjoy. And in the meantime, please join me in welcoming our special guest, Stephen Rolfes. Hello.
Hello, greetings and salutations. It is so good to be here in the Outer Realm.
Thank you. It's so amazing to have you. I really, really enjoyed the book.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Not what I didn't see some of that stuff coming. I like to think to myself, no, I'm an enthusiast of the book. I think like I say in the intro, I think I read it. I was 12 or 13 when I read it for the first time. And I was hooked in that point. And after that, it was just, I ended up being gifted by a dear friend with the first edition of the original book. And
you have the first edition.
The very first. Yeah, I did. I was so fortunate. It was just a private library, and she was just cleaning it out, and she goes, I thought you'd like this. And I'm like, yes. And when I looked at it, I'm like, oh my God, this was the first publication, like the first round of publications that were done. So
now, is that the first one in England or the one in the United States?
I'm thinking United States.
Because the one in the United States has a picture of the castle and Dracula coming down from it face down.
Oh yeah, no,
like
then
described in the book.
And it's in the British one because it's a plain,
just a plain.
Yeah.
That is the literal first edition.
Yeah,
it's also worth some money, as is the little toy I brought to share with everyone.
All right.
Let me get it up close to the camera. And,
yes, there we go.
And you see that squiggly, horrible handwriting.
Yes.
This is a letter written by Bram Stoker.
Nice.
My son gave it to me as a Christmas present, maybe a birthday.
Yeah.
And it's got Henry Irving's signature on it. But it was Stoker that actually did the writing on it.
I think that's extraordinary. A nice keepsake for sure. That's wonderful.
It hangs right over my computer when I'm working. I've got Stoker's spirit right there guiding me along.
Yes. Well, I'm sure he just appreciates all of the hard work that you have put into all of this research. Well, I have to ask, what prompted you to want to write this specific book? Because there's so much information, people and speculations, and but you've dissected this literally from conception of somebody else writing about it all the way into, I always love the Mary Shelley, Lord Byron connections, and I've always loved that side of things, and you really took it a few steps further.
That is exactly where it came from. The haunted summer of 1816. Wow. But I go back a year before that.
Yeah.
to what a lot of people who have studied this, they tend to just maybe give it one sentence. I give it an entire chapter.
Yeah.
That is the 1815 eruption of the volcano Tambora on
Yes.
the island of Sumbawa in what is now Indonesia.
Wow.
And this eruption created havoc in the climate of the entire world. And as I explained, it even defeated Napoleon at the Battle of Waterloo because of the rain. But essentially, every place that should have been cold turned out warm. Every place that should have been wet became dry.
Yeah.
And from this mess, 3 horror classics were born. The first and most obvious is Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
Yes.
Which, if you notice, it was a Del Toro just did a really good movie.
I enjoyed
about Frankenstein.
Yeah.
And you notice a lot of it is in the Arctic.
Yes.
That was because there was a lot of exploration of the Arctic because it was melting due to the volcano.
Yes.
The second one, which is, the focus of the book, is Dracula.
Yes.
But it took a lot of little turns and twists before the 1897 publication. And here's a third one a lot of people don't realize is that Edgar Allan Poe's great classic, The Masque of the Red Death.
Yeah, this
was also a result of Tambora.
Wow.
Because it caused a drought in India. This brought about cholera. And cholera spread throughout most of the world. It hit Paris, and there was a masked ball. And this scene was described by the German writer Heinrich Heine. And one of the people dressed like a harlequin started running about madly and then fell over dead. And when they took his mask off, they saw he had died of cholera.
Wow.
And then other people started to get sick. This inspired 10 years later Poe to write The Masque of the Red Death because his own wife, Virginia, was dying of tuberculosis, probably in the next room. He could hear her.
It's so sad, but you're looking at these literary giants, essentially, and you're thinking like, where did it all stem from? And sign of the times, it would have made sense to blend in some of that environment and things that were going on at the time. So it gives us that little bit of historical tidbits within the stories as well.
The bad weather in Switzerland at the time.
Yes.
The way it came, Percy Shelley, Mary Godwin, who was his lover at the time, and the stepsister, Claire Clermont, came to Switzerland. Lord Byron was already in Switzerland, along with this very strange little fella named John Polidori, which is a name that crops up quite often if you read about Frankenstein.
Yes.
Polidori was a doctor, but he was too young to legally practice medicine. So he was just along to kind of keep an eye on Byron, because Byron had to leave England under some very unpleasant circumstances involving his half-sister Augusta Leigh, but I won't go into any further
That's
details.
A show in itself.
Yeah.
Right.
Also, Claire Clermont, who was the one who got Percy and Mary Godwin to go to Switzerland, she was a lover of Lord Byron. In fact, she was in a family way by Lord Byron.
Ah,
So
yes.
he was, I'm sure, real happy to see her.
Right. Oh boy. Yes. Yes.
And as we know, on in 1816, when the weather was horrible, it was rainy, stormy, cold. They couldn't go out and play. In fact, that is where, and if I can wax poetic for just a moment,
Of course.
Byron wrote what I believe is his greatest bit of verse, a poem called Darkness, which he was describing what was going on outside. It looked like the world was ending.
Mm.
And he wrote, I had a dream which was not a dream. The bright sun was extinguished, and the stars did wander darkling in the eternal space, rayless and pathless.
Yeah.
That's the good stuff there.
That's deep.
But one night, in order to entertain each other, they had a copy of a book called Phantasmagoriana.
Mm-hmm.
And this book, which incidentally you can get today,
Yes.
I don't recommend it. It's really quite. We grew up with the Twilight Zone and stuff. You know, this is amateur stuff here.
Yeah.
But they were reading these stories during these stormy nights, and one night they read the poem Crystal Bell. Now, a lot of people may not be familiar with Coleridge's poem Christabel, but believe me, if you're a young goth girl and you love vampire poetry, you have got to read Christabel by Coleridge.
All right.
They were reading it, and all of a sudden, Percy Shelley, the great poet, for lack of a better term, he just freaks out. And he goes running, screaming from the room. And Polidori had to go after him and finally act like a doctor. And he got him calmed down. Byron, who was enjoying every bit of this, Byron was a little hedonistic. He said, I know what. And he kind of tossed the Phantasmagoria book aside. Why don't we all write our own horror story? That's where Frankenstein was born, with that suggestion from Lord Byron, and also Dracula. Now, if you like, I could go ahead and kind of give some of the twists and turns to get it going there.
I'm totally following along because there is so much to this, and I know I won't do it justice just with questions. So it's your show. Take it wherever you want to go. I'm enthralled.
Thank you. Well, Lord Byron, he wrote poetry. He didn't write horror, stories, but he figured it was his idea. He had to come up with something.
Yeah.
And he came up with a really, really good vampire story. It's known as A Fragment, and you can read it today. It's very good. It makes you hanging on, wanting more, and all of a sudden it just stops. So apparently Byron just kind of set it aside, and I'll come back to that later. Never did. But there's this really good story. Mary Godwin, of course, wrote the beginning, the outline kind of Frankenstein. Polidori made some kind of silly story and nobody paid much attention. Now, but during this time, obviously, Lord Byron showed his story to Polidori. So Polidori had the basis of that story. Now, the weather clears up a bit. It's time for them to move on, like taking the chess pieces off of the board. The game has started,
Yeah.
but they're not going to finish it. Now, Byron fires Polidori because he pretty much couldn't take this immature, tempestuous little doctor anymore. So it's like, let the doorknob hit you or the good Lord split you.
Right.
And like 2 years later, Polidori is back in England, and pretty soon Frankenstein is published. And by now, Mary Godwin had married Percy Shelley. She is now Mary Shelley.
Yeah.
And Polidori is reading this. Wait a minute. Yes, I was there. I'm getting no credit. They're not even acknowledging that I was there. Oh. Well, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to write a second story. In fact, I'm going to take Lord Byron's vampire story. I'm going to finish it. And in so doing, he did it as a satire of Lord Byron.
Yeah.
His vampire was Lord Ruthven.
Yes. The
title of the novella, it's almost a novel, is The Vampire, Vampyre.
Yes.
And soon after that, Polidori, who could never catch a break, he was depressed. He had no idea that this was becoming very popular, and he wound up committing suicide. He drank prussic acid. Meanwhile, the story is picked up by the theater. And all throughout Europe, especially in Paris, there are versions of the story that Polidori had written and had stolen from Lord Byron. Wow. Which had been inspired by Christabel, I imagine.
Yeah, yes.
And one of the people who wrote a version of this play was a man named Alexandre Dumas, who, of course, wrote The Count of Monte Cristo and The Three Musketeers, D'Artagnan and all.
Yes, another big guy, yeah.
It was very, very popular for years. And they said at one point, you went into Paris, every single theater had their own production of The Vampire with Lord Ruthven. Now, you go ahead a few years, and we find that, I'm trying to find the date. I think in the 1870s. Okay, I should write that in there next time.
That's okay.
There's an Irishman named Bram Stoker. Now, Bram Stoker is a civil servant. He works for the courts, but he also writes theater reviews for the, I believe it was the Dublin Mail. And he's in love with a girl named Florence Balcombe. Now, the two of them go to visit the house of Florence's other suitor. There was a menage a trois. There's the other man. And the other man was Oscar Wilde.
Yeah.
And the family, the Wilde family, had little soirees, and the guests would come over, Oscar's friends, Florence, and that other big Irish guy that always hanging around. Yeah. The father was an Egyptologist, and he would take the men downstairs for brandy and cigars, and he would show off his collection. And
wow.
He would tell strange stories of ancient Egypt. And this showed up in a later Bram Stoker novel. I believe it was The Jewel of the Seven Stars, about
Yes.
Egypt and mummies and such. The mother was a folklorist. She collected Celtic tales and really weird stuff from Irish mythology. So Stoker is listening to her. He's listening to the father, and he is getting an education. And right next door to the Wild House is his boss, who he never really saw or spoke to or worked with. But this was a person named Sheridan Le Fanu. Sheridan Le Fanu had written a marvelous vampire novella called Carmilla. And that was another influence on Stoker. All of this is coming together. And remember, he was a theater critic. And who should come to town but Henry Irving, who at the time, he was like the Jack Nicholson of his time. He was the A+++ list for the theater. And eventually the two became friends. Irving asked Stoker, leave the civil service, come on over to London. I just bought the Lyceum Theater, and I need someone to handle all of this business stuff. Well, Stoker gave it a lot of thought for maybe 3-4 seconds and said, I'm on my way. But first he had to take care of a little problem with Florence. So he went to Florence, got down on one knee, and I said, look, I'm leaving, and I'm probably not going to be back. So if we're going to be married, you have to make your decision right now. And when you know, she chose Bram Stoker over Oscar Wilde. And considering Oscar Wilde's later life, that may be for the best.
I think she made a good choice. Yes. Yes.
So now you have Stoker in the theater, where, of course, now he knows all about this great vampire play. He had written a few novels, even wrote a Western. And he has thought, okay, I am going to write my vampire story. And it's going to be inspired by all of this and by my boss, Henry Irving. You see, Henry Irving got a really ambitious and weird idea. He says, I am going to put on a production of Goethe's Faust. Now, this is, that was performed all over the world. It was a classic, but not the way that he wanted to do it. Irving wanted to have a spectacle. He wanted to have something that people would think about for decades later. Here we are 100 years later talking about it.
Yeah, it's a spectacle.
And so there is a scene, I believe it's the beginning of Act 3, which is Walpurgisnacht, where the witches have their Sabbath in the Harz Mountains. And this was going to be done in such a way that people would remember it forever. It was kind of his version of a Pink Floyd concert.
Right on.
He had hundreds of extras on the stage, and they're dressed like witches, like devils, and dancing about, going wild. He had witches flying over the stage on their broomsticks, and he had fire, and there were special effects with lighting and the orchestra playing this music that would make Wagner drool. And in the midst of that, through a cleft in the rocks, out walks Henry Irving in a scarlet outfit with a saber at his side and a hat with a feather on it. And he is the devil, the Mephistopheles, the Lord of the Sabbath. Now, the people in the audience freaked out. That no one moved, every jaw was open. Yeah. At the back of the theater was Bram Stoker. Now, he always stood in the back. He's not watching the play. He's seen it 100 times. He's watching the audience. And he sees the reaction of them. And he looks up and he sees his boss, Henry Irving, transformed into Mephistopheles, coming out of a mountain. And his jaw drops. He says, I have my model for my vampire.
Wow.
Now, there is one thing in this which is very important. A lot of people kind of miss the importance of this. But Bram Stoker was a workaholic and just wild about his job, and he never stopped working. And he was finally given some time off. And he took the family, which was his son Noel, his wife Florence, and they went up to the eastern coast of England, and they stayed in Whitby, which of course is very big in the novel. And while he was there, Stoker was finally able to relax. They stayed at an inn which had also housed Lewis Carroll and Charles Dickens.
Wow.
So writers kind of congregated here. He is hanging out with an author who's finishing his novel. The author's name was Du Maurier, and the novel was Trilby, which featured a villainous character, Svengali. And Stoker is having the time of his life. The family is going off somewhere doing something. He's walking around. He's talking to old sailors, and he is going to the library. The sailors told him about a Russian ship, the Dmitri, that back, I have the date, don't worry about it. It's a story 5 years earlier had crashed into the shore.
Yes.
This is why Dracula arrives in England on a shipwreck. Of course, in the novel, he takes the form of a wolf and jumps off and hides in the grave of a suicide. But something very, very important happened while he was in Whitby. Up until then, he figured that he was going to set his novel in Styria. That's with a T. That's part of Austria, a very wooded and mountainous area, because that is where Carmilla, written by his old boss, had been set. He was given like a little homage. And the name of the vampire was Count Wampir.
Wampir.
Okay, yeah. That beagle was not hunting. And he knew it. Okay, I got to come up with another name, but what am I going to do? He goes to the library. He figures out, I love the shipwreck. Problem is, Austria doesn't have much of a coastline. In fact, it doesn't have any. So I need to find a wild mountainous region that is close to a large body of water. And he goes over and he looks at Varna in Russia, which is where the Dmitri had come from.
Mm-hmm.
And he just looks up a little bit. Oh, what's this? Transylvania, mountainous, wild, the land of robbers and phantoms. Yes, that'll work. So he goes to the library and he starts reading about the about Transylvania, and he gets a book. You're going to love this. The book is An Account of the Principalities of Wallachia and Moldavia. It's a real page turner.
Yes.
But in a footnote, only, we find mention of Vlad Shepish, Vlad the Impaler. But he is called by his title, his nickname, Dracula. And at that point, Stoker says, Dracula. Yes, that's it. I've got my vampire.
Yeah.
And that is the only real connection to Vlad the Impaler and the fictional Count Dracula. But it's a good one.
It's a good one for sure.
And he went home. There was one more little thing that I should mention, and then I'll shut up for a few moments.
No, you go. It's your show.
There was a kind of a tradition at the Lyceum Theater. This would be something called the beefsteak room. After the performance, there were always luminaries attending. For example, Aaron Burr was there one time. Arthur Conan Doyle, all kinds of political royal figures and such.
Anyone who was anyone.
Exactly. Who's who in Stoker's world. And they would go back to this room. They would have brandy. They would have cigars. They would have a big juicy steak in front of them. And they would sit and they would talk. And Stoker got to talk to some very interesting people, specifically people who were in a group that I'm sure you're familiar with, the Golden Dawn.
Yes.
And the occultist group at the time, this is before Aleister Crowley joined. So Crowley had no influence on Dracula. But he did get to sit and chit-chat with Samuel Mathers, an author named Arthur Machen, which if you've never read Arthur Macon's writing short stories, I highly recommend them. And this one is very important. Pamela Coleman Smith. Now, a lot of people may not be familiar with her, but she was with escorted by Arthur Edward Waite. And he was the one who created the Rider-Waite tarot cards. Pamela Smith was the artist who drew those cards. It's thus the kind of the classic tarot deck that we use today was pretty much the result of Pamela Coleman Smith. And as they sat there eating their steak, she is explaining about the tarot and the symbolism. And you'll find tarot symbolism is found throughout the entire novel. Most of the main characters line up with different characters in the tarot.
The tarot, interesting. Yeah, I like the twist with that. No, I like the twist with that.
Yeah. Finally, 1897, the book is published, and it had been written in a relaxed state. That is why it's so good. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't written to get money. It was just a labor of love. And I know you talked about you got your first edition when you were about 12. As you see in my introduction, I got mine when I was about 9 years old.
Wow.
And I read it so many times, that book just literally fell apart in my hands.
Yeah. Yes. I think once you read it, like for myself, when I read Dracula for the very first time, I was hooked. But I'm such a history fanatic that I started plucking out a lot of the historical stuff, even at a young age. And I know, you're going to talk about In Search of Dracula as we go on, and I own the book. It was one of the first books I bought after that, just to delve a little bit deeper.
And that one is filled with history and an area of history you don't normally see. Southeastern Europe and the Muslim invasions, and Prince Vlad. It wasn't a count; he was a prince, and the horrific things he did. But it scared the heck out of the Turks. Yeah. And you got to be really cruel to scare the Turks.
But he learned it from the Turks. Most of Europe was impaling people at the time. But the Turks, it's where he learned how to be a war strategist. I think he got a bad rap that way because, maybe he was a bit extreme with it. We'll say, he was a bit extreme with it. But, that was a sign of the times. Again, is that would not have been sort of a method of choice?
Well, what they had as justice back then. Now, I'm sure you've been to Europe. You've probably seen the castles, the dungeons. Yeah. Law enforcement and crime and punishment, it was a little different back then than you would find today.
It was. Someone that I had filmed with a few years ago actually owned the entire torture chamber from Nuremberg Castle.
Ooh.
That was his line of work, just buying, a lot of antiquities and such. And that came up and he purchased it. So there, it's just, sometimes you get with these obscure things and you just realize that you sometimes have to become the caretaker, so it continues to survive. Because even going to some of the old castles, it's really amazing how some pieces, like, they're not all original anymore. Like they just don't last forever.
Yeah, I'm on my way to the British Isles in about 2 weeks.
Very nice.
And, one of the stops I'm going to make is in a castle. I believe this one's in Scotland. And
I love Scotland.
Very looking forward to getting back to the British Isles again.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's a whole different world. I've loved traveling through Europe because it is so, not that we're not old here, because I've had many people say, no, we're old here too. It's just different, history. It's like, yes, absolutely. But you really see the different way of life. Some of the places, it's almost like time stands still. Many parts of Romania, actually, you could go in to see how time has stood still. You still see people and farmers with, the horse and carts with the big solid carts, wheels, and, it's still very, very much a part of their way of life.
I have to check with my son on that. He's been to Cluj in Transylvania.
Me too.
He may well have seen that. In fact, it's hard to find a place he hasn't been.
I love that. So if he went to Cluj, did he go to the haunted forest, Hoyabatsu?
Yes, he was there.
Yes.
That is a place I would love to see. That and the forest at the base of Mount Fuji. Those two
Oh, the
haunted
haunted.
forests.
Yeah, I can never pronounce that
It begins with an
name.
A. We'll leave it at that.
It does, yeah. It's a tongue twister, but yeah, the forest in Romania. I think
And the trees grow in weird ways.
they do. They have a forest in Poland where the trees do the same thing. But when I was there, we found out after the fact that the forest was under a no-fly zone.
Oh.
There is a lot to that place. It's really incredible. So yeah, I was really fortunate to be able to spend some time there. But this is the lore that we're talking about. Bram Stoker's never stepped foot in this country, yet somehow he seemed to just peg it.
Well, he had been to Italy, and he looked at the Tyrolean Alps, and he used that as the model. He said, wow. What the heck? Mountains are mountains.
Yeah. Yeah. But it really gives you the sense of, he knew how to twist and turn it. And he really had the sense of, wow, this is what it's really like. But meanwhile, it's a totally different country. But I don't know. I thought he did famously well with it.
Oh, incredible. The book has never been out of print since 1897.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible. I know Dacre Stoker, and it's been a lot of fascinating stuff that keeps surfacing. He says it's just like a mind blow all the time. The more you just dig and dig and dig, and it's a phenomenal journey. But your book is something that I like. Again, that's a first for me, going into the literary part of the inspiration and him being a product of all of these incredible plays and these people. But here's a tidbit. Did you know that Vlad had actually come up against one of the member of the Frankenstein family?
The Frankenstein castle is where the I have his name here, Conrad Dippel in the 17th century. Johann Dippel was his name. That was the inspiration for Dr. Frankenstein. And of course, this is as I believe, I know it's Eastern Germany, and it would well be, it might be a little bit further north, but keep in mind, Transylvania at the time was very much a Habsburg possession, and it was very German. So the fact that Prince Vlad would be in a battle or argument, the way they settled arguments back then, I should take down some of those stuff. That's not at all surprising. Yes,
it was more of a political thing. I had recently found, everybody said they met on the battlefield. No, apparently it was a political thing. And when I was in Romania, because I don't know if that he was buried on Snagov Island, but he has got a monument there, a big flat, that would have been over a burial space that belongs to the Frankenstein member in question. And it was tucked underneath one of the side buildings. And I saw that when I was there, and they do talk about that. So that's a thing. It was interesting though to see, because when I'm reading your book, it's just kind of like, wow, these members of these, the two books written, and these two families, like in real life, they meet somehow in conflict, a competition of sorts,
The wild game of politics.
It's a wild game, yes.
I found the Schloss Frankenstein is located in Darmstadt, which is in Hesse. Now, I don't remember my German map Well,
Yeah, that's okay.
where exactly Hesse is,
Yeah.
I know that's who we fought in America, the Hessians. They were
Yes.
mercenaries.
Yeah. Yes. It's crazy how everything comes back around. You know, yeah, like everything comes back around. So as this book was being written, and of course it took off like wildfire. Um, you start realizing you come into this point where we talk about Kreskin, just to introduce the whole Kreskin story.
Yes. Kreskin, who was a mentalist, he said it
Yes.
wasn't a psychic, he was a mentalist. I
Mhm.
think it was actually a stage magician.
Yeah.
And one time he had two guests on, Radu Florescu and Mr. McNally.
Mhm.
And they had just written the book In Search of Dracula. And they started talking about Vlad Tepes.
Mhm.
And I was in college at the time. And I didn't have much money. No college student does.
Mhm.
But the next day, I went to downtown Cincinnati, went into a bookstore, and I bought a hardcover copy of that book,
It's a great book. Yeah, I have
which
one as well.
has a picture of Nosferatu on the original cover.
Yes.
I don't know if your copy had that as well.
I don't recall it having that. It had it was sort of a more picturesque thing with Bran Castle on it, and had all kinds of little snippets around it. If memory serves me correctly. I have it. It's in a box somewhere. It's just been stored.
Oh, with mine, yes,
Yes.
somewhere.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, great. It was a great book. It was really well done.
Yes.
But I mean, was Radu not a descendant somehow of, if memory serves me correctly, of the Vlad's family?
I
I
have
thought I
not
read
heard that.
Okay, I thought I had heard that because they used to do a lot of interviews after this book came out, and they decided to just start, digging more into it. But from that point on, I think that opened doors to people started making the connection, and the connection changes a little bit. Like as you start getting into things, you start realizing, oh wait, what? Maybe this wasn't the inspiration for Dracula after all.
But as it turns out, there is a connection.
Yes.
It's really thin,
I like it.
but
Yeah.
vital.
Yeah.
The fact, that's why we're not talking about Count Wampir.
Yeah. Wumpia. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm glad he changed that. Yeah, that didn't work.
Yeah. Then it just doesn't roll off the tongue the same way. No, it does not. So so as you start digging further in and you start seeing a lot of, like, there's a lot of similarities there though, isn't there? Even though there is the argument, okay, well, Vlad was a prince, Stokers, was a count, and you like Stokers count, as you make mention, was a is it a Zakeli? Am I pronouncing that properly?
Uh,
Vlad was from the Bazarab clan, and the count was
yeah,
from the Zakeli. SZE.
yeah,
If I'm
yeah. I
pronouncing
have
that,
those
yeah.
in the book.
Yeah,
The two clan.
I'm probably not doing it justice, but
Yeah,
yeah. So I mean,
not an easy language to pronounce by
no,
an outsider.
no, not at all.
And the
But
battle scene was completely different. In
mhm,
the novel, Count Dracula leads his troops. They get completely slaughtered, but he rides away,
yeah,
saving his own skin, letting his men die. And
yeah,
you look at the historic Prince Vlad, I think he would be at the front of the battle.
yeah,
He would he would
he would.
never turn his back on the enemy.
No, not at all. Not at all. I completely agree with you on that. Um, I think for me, when you go to some of the sites, like, Sri Shora, where he was, born and where he spent time and looking at, the family estates in Targo Viste and ending up in Poenare, you start to see some of the things that he was up again. When I look at the fortress, which is in ruins of Poenare, it reminds me a lot of Bram Stoker's, how he describes the ruins of the castle in the end. And I think if you look at even Bram Stoker's Dracula, because I think they did their best to try to keep it as close to the book as possible. The castle is kind of in ruins, and is this let go, and it was sort of the same idea. It has a good way of putting you there when you see it all, right?
And
So,
you see it as ruins even in the 1931 Todd Browning movie with Bela Lugosi, and you see that it's literally falling apart.
Yes.
And the Jonathan Harker character, who turns out to be Renfield in that film, it says, I was looking, and with all of this, I didn't know what was happening.
Yeah.
In other words, the place is falling apart.
Falling apart. Still there. Still there. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Do you think that for some people it just sort of drove it home?
That
a little bit. As
that
far as the story,
life.
the realism. Yeah. Because I mean, when I saw these things, you tend to like there are Dracula tours that you can do out there, of course, like
of
Dracula.
course.
Everywhere is just, you don't go anywhere without buying Dracula memorabilia, then you have your Vlad memorabilia, so on and so forth. But you get a feeling right away. You're seeing tidbits, and I think we see what we want to see. You're looking at things like, oh yeah, this is what must have been where this part of the book, took place. Like you could just really put yourself there, realizing, well, okay, maybe not. So it was interesting in reading, your book and thinking, you know what, maybe this is not the basis. I mean, you're always going to have people sort of going apples and oranges with different things. But what was the key element in there that made you go, this is the wrong inspiration. This was not who it was based on. That aha moment.
It seemed that way even when I was the college student reading the book. It's like, wait a minute, this is not coming together completely.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're a college student, you have a few other things
to worry about
at the time.
Yeah.
But yes, eventually over the years, as I studied Dracula and where this all came from, I saw, yes, that it was, you're looking more at Lord Byron than you are Vlad Tepes.
Really?
So essentially, the only thing he got was the name. Because if he had known that Dracula had impaled thousands of people, Stoker would have put that in the novel.
Yeah, it would have been a good seller for sure.
He was not shy about gore in this.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Definitely did not lack of it anyway. Jen says, I wonder if Dracula had a medical condition for anemia. I don't know. The character had never mentioned, but Bram didn't he? Not so much for anemia, but he did have health issues as a young man, as a child. Bram Stoker.
Vlad, yeah.
No, Bram Stoker.
Bram Stoker was not expected to live.
Yeah.
And his mother nursed him for like the first 11 years of his life. And what did she do? She did the same thing that Lady Wilde did. She told him Irish folk tales. So he already knew all about things like the Dag Dul, the red blood drinker. He knew about the Dullahan, the headless rider, and the Coach Bauer, which is almost exactly like the coach that Jonathan Harker takes to get up to the actual castle.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes.
And then suddenly Stoker was cured. No one knows how, but he became extremely athletic.
Mm-hmm.
He was a huge guy, big red billowing hair and a big red beard, looked like Thor, muscular. And
Right.
a couple of guys in Scotland said, "Oh, look at that Irish guy over there. We can take him. He's got some money."
Yeah.
Well, Stoker had each one by the throat and took them into the police station and kind of threw them on the floor. Yeah, here's some of your garbage here.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. He's a big guy for sure. Yeah. Um, how do you? So, I mean, we know how the vampire, um, most certainly changed theater. I think from that point on, and then got carried over into films, and there's been a vampire story of so many different titles, and so much of it based on, the Count Dracula and of Bram's creation. Some of
I
it,
have a whole chapter devoted to the celluloid vampire. And of Dracula, I have, I think, 5 versions that are worth watching.
right?
Although they're all fun.
Yeah,
Order a pizza and sit and watch that. But there's
yeah,
5 that are really classic. And of course, the very first one is what I think my second favorite horror movie of all time, Nosferatu.
really,
Yeah.
yeah,
And F.W. Murnau, who made the film,
mm-hmm.
was sued by Florence Stoker
Yeah,
because somehow he forgot to ask permission.
and
It dragged on for years. And then some judge said, now you got to take every copy of this film and burn it. You got to destroy it.
Wow.
Thank goodness there were a few scofflaws running around.
Oh,
and today we have one of the greatest triumphs of film.
Yeah. Have you seen the remake of Nosferatu?
Oh, the 2024
Yeah.
Robert Eggers.
Yeah,
That is incredible with what's her name? Linda Depp, Johnny Depp's
yes.
daughter. Oh,
Yeah.
She is incredible. The film is so well made. In fact, let me plug Robert Eggers. He's coming out this Christmas with a werewolf movie. And I told my friend, well, can we get in line now? Or should we wait for the movie to be released?
Wow.
I can't wait to see that.
Yeah, that's going to be really well. I like Nosferatu. I just found it had a very different twist. You knew by watching it where some of it originated from, but it had its own twist. Like I find it was just much darker. It had just a darker side to it. And it was like, because even in the end, when you watch the end, with the sacrifice, like it was very well done.
The myth of Alcestis.
Yeah.
To save her town, her people, her husband, she gives herself. And in so doing, she is able to destroy the vampire with, of course, sunlight.
Yes.
Done beautifully in the original. That window scene is repeated many times that you can see it.
Yes.
Eggers did it wonderfully.
Yes. I liked Max Schreck as well. Like I did like him as the original, because the guy didn't talk. You know what I mean? Like barely. He was just so theatrical.
He looked and walked like a corpse.
Yes.
Now, and there was a lot of symbolism there. Remember, 1922,
Mm-hmm.
Germany had just come through the First World War, and a lot of the great old institutions, the nobility, were now destitute with the starving population. The Kaiser had fled to either Denmark or Holland.
Mm-hmm.
And so what do we see? A vampire who is dressed like nobility, but it's old, torn, and filthy.
Yeah.
It is destitute. It reflects the Weimar
Yes.
Republic around it.
Yes, it absolutely did. It absolutely did. You know, when you go back into folklore about what was actually visualized or said about vampires, especially getting into the old Slavic or Polish, you know, the strigoi, and you have these 19th century writers coming in, and they're just changing things. Like, how did they, I guess, cleaned up these? Because the strigoi, they were just not romantic. They were just not,
No,
you know, something to look at. You know what I mean? How did they, like, where did it change? How were they able to get this all cleaned up to be able to make these guys so, you know, sophisticated and distinguished that you wanted them to just, yes, come to me, I'm going to let you in.
The first chapter of my book, I discuss actual cases of vampirism.
Mhm.
And I include cases like Arnold Paola
Mhm.
in Rhode Island, U.S.,
Mhm.
Mercy Brown. There was also Sarah Tillingast, I believe, was another case like this. And these were all creatures that came at night. They didn't really have much understanding of what was going on around them. They did not interact, but
Mhm.
they created great havoc, and they would steal the life from the from people,
Mhm.
just like it is mentioned in the Bible,
Yeah.
in the book of Proverbs, and I believe it was chapter 38. I should have written that down,
Yeah, that's
where they
okay.
say the horse leech, which is a word, aluka,
Mhm.
a vampire, has two daughters who cry out, give, give.
Mm.
In other words, this is a parasite. It steals life, and
Mhm.
it gives nothing back but death.
Yeah. Do you think that as much as blood is the life, do you feel that maybe there's just the life force itself, that you know, like the energy itself?
That's an interesting point, because there is something known as a psychic vampire. Now, I'm sure you're familiar with Dion Fortune,
Mm.
the classic book Psychic Self-Defense. She talks about this a great deal,
Mhm.
that some people are able to steal the life and the energy away from a person,
Mm.
um,
Yes.
just through some kind of innate power. And
Mhm.
if you know someone who works in a retirement facility, what they used to call an old folks home,
Mhm.
yeah, I don't call it that because they might come and get me.
Yeah, I certainly
Um,
feel like an old folk, are you? Right.
and usually they know there is one person quite often
Mhm.
who seems almost to be getting younger, getting stronger, but everyone around him or her
Oh,
is getting weaker. Yes,
that's
this is
crazy.
not a made up thing. It does
That
happen.
That is crazy. That is I did not actually know that. I know about psychic vampires, but it's very interesting when you mention that they go into, you know, the home for the aged, that there are those that just leech that energy. That's crazy. Huh.
Yeah. Psychic leeches. Yes.
Psychic leeches. Yeah. Um, Jen says, Steven sounds like the in-laws. Uh-oh. Going to the home. That's not good. That's so funny.
I hope she has nice in-laws. Yes.
Yes, don't want to put him in the home too soon. So, um, yeah, I don't. That is really interesting. So, how do you feel that now? I mean, we're entering out of the age of theater. We still have theater. I had a theater membership for years. Went just love the theater, and but you enter the age of film. I remember staying up with my father, once a month. Okay, the horror movies, black and white, start at midnight. And he felt he needed to stay up with me, but he really didn't. Like, I was probably, again, like 10, 11. But the old black and whites with Bela Lugosi, The Mummy, Boris Karloff, you have that whole era of film where there wasn't all these theatrics, which is why when you say
Yeah.
Irving redid this play with all these incredible theatrics, I'm thinking that would have been a really big deal for that time in theater.
Oh yeah.
Y- You
People
know,
were stunned. But
yes,
you're talking about the films from the 30s and the
yeah,
40s, the ones that I grew up with watching
yeah.
shock theater. If there
Mhm.
anyone out there as old as me, you may remember shock theater.
Yes,
And
yeah.
those were done by the Lamley family that owned Universal. And
Wow.
the father created some incredible films:
Mhm.
Dracula, Frankenstein, The Black Cat, which was
Yeah.
Edgar Ulmer.
Mhm.
And then his son took over. And at that point, then you started getting a lot of sequels. One monster meets another monster.
Creature from the Black Lagoon, The Mummy meets
Yeah.
Dracula, all those kind of things. Yeah,
Yes, and the quality kind of went down.
yeah.
One exception, who was my boyhood hero, 1941, Lon Chaney Jr., the
Launch.
Wolf Man.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. I forgot
And
about Lon Chaney.
for film buffs out there, I'll give you something to look for the next time you have the pleasure of seeing that film. When Lon Chaney, who is Larry Talbot in the film, he's ready to walk into the antique store where Evelyn Ankers is working. Look above him at the wall of the building behind him. It says, "Sane Man."
Dun, dun, dun. Yeah.
He is, yeah,
Yeah.
Larry Talbot is not mad. He's under a curse.
Yeah. Interesting. They leave you these little clues. So I mean, out of all the vampire films, do you have a favorite? And do you have a favorite actor for vampire?
Oh, absolutely.
From one buff to
Well,
another.
vampire films, my number one favorite film of all time.
Yeah.
The only one that I show on Halloween night is a 1931 Carl Dreyer classic, Vampire.
Okay. That's
I don't
really
know.
going back in time.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever seen that. A lot of people have not seen it.
No, I don't think it's
It
readily available.
Oh, you can see it on YouTube.
Well, now you can, yeah, but I don't
Now you
remember.
can.
Yeah, yeah.
I grew up for years hearing about this film, and I had never seen it. And finally, I found it in the library, and I checked it out, and it was like, oh my God, what on earth is this?
Wow.
But if you love horror films, or if you
Yeah,
love vampire films, you
yeah.
have got to see that one. And then, of
Okay.
course, number two is Nosferatu.
Nosferatu. It's funny because Wayne, I'm going to get to some comments shortly.
Okay.
Wayne has written a vampire, called The Vampire Tales, which is more, it's a historical fiction. When he was researching, he was told a story about, um, I guess it was in Wayne, just feel free to chime in anytime. Believe it was World War I or World War II. And the soldiers the German soldiers were going in to hide or sleep, rest for the night. And they went to one of the neighboring farms and they asked to stay in the barn. And the farmer said, yes, okay, you can stay in the barn, but lock the doors. And they're like, look, and we all have guns here. Anything tries to get in here, they don't stand a chance. And they're just like, no, guns aren't going to kill this. And that night they had reported horrific things going on outside, like sounds that they could not, World War One, he says, that they'd never heard before. Like something was out there. And this is Germany.
I heard a case from the Second World War in Europe of a sergeant who was leading a small platoon of soldiers, and they were bivouacking in an old building, and the men were sleeping on one floor. The sergeant went up to the next floor, and during the night, they started hearing things, screaming and yelling and all kinds of horrific sounds.
Yeah.
When the sergeant came down the next morning, every single one of those soldiers was sitting there with his rifle ready and wondering what the heck is going on here.
Wow, that is crazy. I love it. There's all kinds of these old tales out there, Wayne says in his first comment, going back, he goes, the directors of Nosferatu commented that the actor who played the vampire was way more into the role than anyone on set felt comfortable with. I can imagine.
I have heard that.
Yeah.
That's a good actor.
It is a good actor.
You lose yourself in the role. Of all roles, lose yourself in.
Oh, he played it just, in both films. It just had the way, it was like, they just looked creepy to start with. But I guess, the first one, I mean, you could only do so much with makeup and such back then. And they really knocked it out of the ballpark with that look, let me tell you. He also says in early times it was believed that the blood carried the life force within it because the blood was drained. Because if the blood was drained and the person died, so it believed that by consuming the blood, you gain the knowledge and power of the person to which the blood came from. Which
you're getting into a very mystical area, which kind of blends over into cannibalism. Yes, cannibals, when they eat someone, they're not going to eat the little runt coward that was running away. They're not looking for nutrition. If they kill the big, strong, leading warrior, that's who they're going to eat because they want to consume his bravery and his wisdom.
Yeah, see, that makes sense. It also reminds me of a friend of mine who had the Nuremberg, he's passed now, but the Nuremberg torture chamber had shrunken heads. He had spent time in the Amazon, and he had spent 5 years with some of the tribes down there. And he had these real authentic shrunken heads. One was creepy because it was a little red-haired man with this little orange mustache. And they had said that, because these were very old, and he said that they came in from, I guess, to try to convert them, right? Because he owned a museum, so these were part of that museum. But he went to stay with the tribal people to get an understanding of how things work with them. Anyway, they said, he's asked me, he goes, why do you think they did this? I said, well, the logic to me is to trap the spirit into, he goes, that's exactly correct. That's exactly what they had maintained from part of like their heritage. This is why they did it. So he had like 6 of them. You had the typical one, the long hair. They look like, like indigenous warriors. And you had this little ginger man, this little Caucasian, really white skin. And I'm thinking, it was crazy. So it goes to show you like just how, back in the day, how they would think of just trapping everything. And you think of the movie.
He kept those in a museum, you say?
They all used to come from the Niagara Falls Museum of Oddities, which had been around from the 1800s and closed probably a couple of decades ago, maybe more. And yeah, they
I'd like
had.
to see that.
I was just saying last night on a show I co-hosted on that they had the mummy, back in Victorian times where everything came over. They had the rage, go to Egypt, bring back antiquities. And somehow the mummy of Ramses the First, I believe, first, yeah, was I think it was the first that was brought back. One of 8 mummies. They had a royal mummy. They didn't never knew it. So he's back now. He's back in, of course, Cairo, but took it a museum purchasing everything when they closed the museum, and they contacted authorities and said, "We think we have one of your royal mummies." I was like, "What?"
Yeah. Would you like a mummy? Yes.
Exactly. It's crazy, but it's just it's all the way out there.
I'll guarantee I would not want any of those stuff in my house.
Yeah.
I'm sure my wife would not like
Yeah.
that stuff in
Yeah.
the house, especially shrunken heads. Yeah.
Yeah, well, trying to get authentic ones, but again, they were all part of the museum. They eventually all went, to auction and stuff, and they sat with other museums, like they toured for a while, things like that. So, it's kind of good. I know people who've got some pretty obscure things, so it's like,
So they're scattered around now.
I believe I think everything went together. I believe, I don't know if a museum purchased them, but it's sad, that just some of this stuff has been there forever, and they come from these crazy, like these ancient cultures, and you have to see what was in it. It was just insane stuff. But yeah, so, but I don't know, it is interesting to think about what's out there, technically speaking. So, of course, with all these films, everybody wanted to be Dracula. Nobody wanted to be Nosferatu. The allure. Like, why is it that vampires always have a lot of money in castles and, except for Nosferatu? He wasn't as handsome, but that seemed to be what they went with after that.
In the novel, Dracula goes treasure hunting amidst that wild ride up to the castle. He stops the coach, he gets out, and there's a blue flame coming up in the ground, and he digs down and he finds treasure. And he says, only on this night are these flames visible. And Harker even asked, well, why doesn't everyone come up here and get rich? And he said, no, the peasants would never go near those those strange flames.
Wow. Also lends to the theory a little bit. If you look at Vlad Tepes, who left a goblet of gold, a gold goblet sitting in the courtyard of the town. He felt that he left it where the water fountain was. He goes, everyone should be able to drink with dignity. And he left it there. Nobody ever touched it. Same idea.
No, I don't think I would want to be on his most wanted list. No.
Well, you don't want to be on the other end of a skewer, that's for sure. So where do you go from here? I mean, this is kind of a hard act to follow with. I
have a book coming out. I believe it is going to be next spring. Mm-hmm. It's called An Exploration of the Otherworld. Ooh. And it deals with the Celtic myth, the Celtic otherworld, and strange cases, both of creatures that live in that realm coming into our world, and people in our world vanishing and going into their world. And that's not just people. That includes like dogs, a creature you're familiar with from Celtic belief, the black dog, the shuck, with a huge black dog with red eyes, and they vanish and they appear. They're very sad. They kill people too, 1577 in Blythburgh.
Yes.
And I even have a case of a dinosaur. Actually, it's a pterosaur.
Yes.
Out in a very remote, wild area known as Fresno, California.
Isn't that interesting? I've heard of them dinosaurs just showing up in places in the Congo and such. So same idea.
Kelly and Bebe, yes,
Wow.
the great sauropod,
Yes. Yes.
and
So that would include cryptids as well, I guess.
I
Well,
talk a bit about them,
yeah.
especially my favorite, Mothman.
So many people love Mothman.
If you're
Yes.
ever in
Yes.
West Virginia, northern West Virginia, you
Yes.
have got to see the Mothman Museum.
Yeah. It's a crazy story. I think that's the whole way that the story broke. We became familiar with Mothman based on what happened at Point Pleasant.
1967, I believe it was.
Yeah.
And he was flying after a 1957 Chevy, which, if anyone's my age, remember back in the 60s, we all had 57 Chevys.
Yeah.
And this thing was going like 100 miles an hour down these country roads in West Virginia.
Yeah.
And this creature is right above it, coming down and hitting the roof of the car and such. And
Yes.
they finally got into Point Pleasant. The creature flew off the other way, and they had the police come out. And after that, there were more sightings, and things got very strange.
Yes. Yeah, they
then
did.
The Silver Bridge collapsed, and after that, nothing happened.
Yeah. It lends to that theory. Some people believe, like, is he just there to warn you of impending doom, or is he the result of, the tragedy? And there've been stories of him showing up all over the world where tragedies have happened. It's kind of like, it's weird. That's why
there's a pretty good photograph of him in Chicago. I guess if you went to Google and look at the image and put in the photo of Mothman in Chicago, and it's a pretty good photo. And there's this thing flying up there, and that ain't no pigeon.
Right. Yeah. Oh, I can't wait. I want in on that book. You're definitely going to have to come in and hang out. And you are back in October for your book.
I am, yes. We'll talk about banshees. Yes. That was my first book for Llewellyn. Beware the Banshees Cry.
Yes. I can't wait to just sink my teeth into that one. Pardon the pun. For today's show. But yeah, it's going to be great. Well, definitely, let me know when the new book comes out. Ironically, I'm booking into next year now. So especially for this slot. So if you're really interested in booking for the spring, I say roughly around the time you think it'll come out, and we'll make sure we book you in for around the time where it comes out, so we can promote you and talk about it. It would be awesome.
I'd love to come back to the Outer Realm.
Thank you. Just come and get lost with the rest of us here in the realm. So for everybody who's tuned in, thank you so much from around the world. For our listeners, not our viewers, we thank you all for being here as well. Guys, for tomorrow night, it's kind of a paranormal week. Tomorrow night on The Realm, we talk about unwanted guests, the cost of paranormal attachments, and surviving malevolent hauntings. And that's going to begin with recognizing and identifying the mechanics of all of this stuff and how to take your power back, things like that. And on Thursday night, we're going to do the other side of the coin, which essentially is spectral roommates and how to peacefully coexist with spirit residents. That I've done. I've lived in both sides of that darn coin, and let me tell you, there's a lot of stories to be told there. But tune in, really laid back week, and we started it off today, of course, with this incredible book on the bloody road to Dracula, Castle Dracula. The title alone catches you, The Bloody Road to Castle Dracula. So, and you do, without giving away everything in the book, you just have to get it. you do talk about the history of vampires, and you get into the inspiration, of course, behind Bram Stoker's masterpiece. But there's so much more. Like, I don't think there's anything you really didn't touch on that included literally everything, right? Not just of the history of vampires, but of Vlad himself, and anything that entices you about Bram Stoker's Dracula. This is the book. So thank you very much. And thank you to everyone. Thank you to the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM on the Gulf Coast, 107.7 FM from New Orleans. Have a terrific afternoon, terrific evening on the other side of the world, and watch for Stephen Rolfes to return in October to talk about banshees. Bye, everyone.